obviously the ceasefire with Hezbollah is not really a ceasefire. Obviously, you talked about it in stream earlier, that it was never really agreed. But at the same time, our forces kept getting orders to stop and only do defensive maneuvers and only respond very tactfully to the point that like entire operations were canceled on the last minute. And there is a general feeling that I have, and a lot of people in Israel have, where we are afraid that basically Trump is going to force us to give up on the war on Lebanon and Hamas and on the IRGC. And that a lot of media here is now focusing on Trump says this and Bibi says this and Trump says this and Bibi says this. It just keeps going back and forth, and then once in a while the IRGC says this, and I think that there's a feeling that a lot of Israelis have right now of this uncertainty that is more than the usual uncertainty of war, more of the whole, okay, now we genuinely don't know if we're actually going to go back to war. And even I don't know anymore, and I want to believe, and everything should implicate that we're going to go back to the war, because obviously you can't look weak in the Middle East. You can't. This is death sentence. But it's also very complicated, and then there is multiple lies that were made both by IDF officials and people in our government about the situation in the north that have been debunked actively, which is, by the way, one of the main arguments I have against pro-Palestinians that claim that there's a genocide in Gaza and that we are just brainwashed. I always say, listen, we all had to be in the IDF, or we all at least have a family member or know someone is in the IDF. So it's really hard to hide big things like that. And this is an example to it, because there were multiple lies told to kind of try to bring back the sense of security to people. But because obviously a lot of people are in the IDF, they call bullshit. So yeah, that's the general thing. And I didn't know if I want to bring it up because it's a bit doom and gloom. But Armin, do you have like any message to Israeli that might be feeling that way? Because I at least know, I know it a lot that feel that way right now, that's like we don't even know if the war is gonna, if Trump is just gonna limit us and not let us fight. Because for one hand they tell us, Israel is strong, we can defeat. In the other hand it's like, yeah, but we gotta listen to Trump, and we don't know what Trump is gonna do because he has to look out for American people first.
But weren't we here, Sapir, weren't we here before Operation Epic Fury? Right before Operation Epic Fury, weren't we in this situation where Trump and Netanyahu were fighting, and he's stopping them? He's not, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose, and we had Khamenei dead, and all of the main IRGC leaders dead. Like, we were like, what do you think about that? People are like, yeah, we've heard this before.
I think it wasn't the same. I think we saw a lot of movement on of forces towards Iran, and there were so many indications that something's going to happen at some point, just don't know when. With this actively today, forces in the IDF drew back from Lebanon. We got out of Lebanon, got out of some regions in Gaza, and before even Hezbollah agreed to any of the terms, it's starting to look like it can be like a whole manipulation thing, but there is a sense that Bibi kind of lost control, and that we're kind of bent and dependent on Trump. And again, this is just one perspective, but that's a thing that kind of worries me for a long time, because there were a lot of indications before, and yes, I was still worried about it, and obviously I brought it up, but this is something that keeps dragging on, and it's exhausting to people. It's incredibly exhausting to Israeli, because every night we basically get an update that indicates that, oh, maybe in a few days we're going to go back fighting, and then we have, oh, but more of our forces are withdrawing, or, oh, there's a ceasefire, but 12 of our soldiers died since the ceasefire started, or, oh, they are so weakened, they have nothing, but we still having missiles on and on every day in the north, or like that the IRGC, we know that there's chaos in the IRGC, but at the same time, you see all those missiles in Kuwait today, mainly, and sometimes Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and it's like it's a very overwhelming feeling, I would say.
Okay, so 3 points, and let me know what you think about all of this. First of all, even if even if you don't go to military operations against either Hezbollah and the Islamic Republic, which I prefer that you could, both America and Israel did at some point. But according to the previous head of Mossad, his analysis said that, and I'm going to take that guy seriously, right? Being head of Mossad, he said that if the even without military operations, if the blockade continues and there's no deal with the Islamic Republic, will fall within 7 months. Yeah, Barnea, exactly. Barnea, 7 months, right? So that's very encouraging to hear that from the head of Mossad. He's not a politician. He's not going to just say things for political reasons. These are people who are usually more objective about their assessment, right? That one point. Another point is regardless of people trying to read President Trump's mind, Netanyahu's mind, are they fighting, not fighting? Is this like good cop, bad cop, or are they aligned, or is this a real fight? Like obviously everybody's going to have their own analysis, and we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know what's happening, really happening, right? But what we do know is this: we know as much as United States, as much as Israel needs United States, okay, that is undeniable. Israel needs United States, okay, but United States needs Israel. Okay, United States also needs Israel. So people who think that America has too much power over Israel because Israel needs America are missing half of this equation. They're both dependent on each other, right? So at some point, Israel, and for Israel, this is existential, right? So if United States can basically, and Israel and United States are more aligned than any two other countries, any two other nation states. I would say if you focus on nations only, but not nation states, Iranian people and Israelis are more aligned than any other two nations. But if you include the state, nation, and state, I would say no two countries are more aligned. No two nation states are more aligned than Israel and United States. Okay, but obviously, being the most aligned, that doesn't mean that you're 100% completely aligned. There's always going to be some misalignment. Israel and United States have different objectives, even though their objectives are very close, right? So if this, so even there is going to be sometimes disagreement and fighting because you have different objectives. So in those areas, even if you're 99% aligned and you're 1% not aligned, in that 1%, then if you're going to see if United States have leverage over Israel, and Israel, like, I wouldn't call it leverage, I would call it like who needs who, given that both countries need each other, and given how big of a deal this is for Israel, and given that United States also needs Israel, at some point, even if United States wants Israel to do certain things, and Israel really doesn't want that, they also will say no, and United States has to get itself aligned with its number one ally in the Middle East. Like you can't, if Israel. So basically, what I'm saying is that given how both countries need each other, if Israel sometimes goes into a direction that is not the main direction that it wants because the United States is asking it, right? Those are the areas where it could afford to do that. In We are going to then have some other areas where United States needs to change what it does because Israel wants that from the United States. So we are going to have examples of Israel changing its direction because of United States insistence, but we also are going to have in more important areas for Israel where United States needs to change its behavior because of Israel's request, given how both countries need each other. So that's another point. I know, yeah, those are all my points. But what do you think about that?
So obviously the United States need Israel. I don't think it's the same level, especially as we have the Abraham Accords going along. But obviously, it's more than that. There is a bond with Western values as well. I think the main thing, and I remember very clearly that before the operation started, I still say it. I always say it. Look at the actions. So I'm looking at the actions, and I'm seeing withdrawal. I have friends in the front lines that they describe it like what we no one knows what we're doing, and we feel like we're just free targets. It's those two things that, okay, I'm trying to ignore the word. I'm trying to say, okay, what might be the strategy, and obviously nobody knows. And I disagree with you that the former Mossad head that doesn't have a political bias. I think everything has become so political charged in Israel. All the ranks, both in the Mossad and the Shabak and the court, that there's been this polarization where everyone are talking. And keep in mind, this is a very intense time because in 5 months we have elections. And I think the thing that I'm most afraid of is a reckless action from our government or military to appease one side or the other, trying to gain votes. We already see that there are all this kind of tension. I don't know how much you know about what's been happening lately in Israel, but there were all those demands for Hasidic Jews to join the military,
Yep.
and now there have been riots every day, to the point that, like, in my university, in the middle of the day, they came and announced, like, you have to go home now because they're blocking all the main roads. So maybe you'll get before, and they're just this whole this whole vibe that we are kind of bending the knee, because yes, sure, the US needs us, but we need them more, if that makes sense. And I'm just afraid
So,
because of the whole,
so
because it's a
yeah, so one thing I would say to all of that, okay, is that no matter these what was going on right now, fundamentally, United States would never abandon Israel, okay? And United States will be there for Israel. And these little experiences that we're seeing, this is just the surface level disagreements and fighting, okay? Like this is somehow within the core. This is the bond between United States and Israel as countries is so much more foundational, like fundamental than many people understand. This is deterministic. This goes beyond even presidents. This goes beyond political parties, goes beyond presidents. This is like this is economics. This is, if you do a cost analysis, it's forced. No, like there is no, even if there is, Jew hatred, isolationists, they come and go. But at the end of the day, based on what makes sense for trade, what makes sense for commerce, what makes sense for global stability, this just the cooperation between United States and Israel just makes too much sense for anybody to be able to undo it. And United States, based on all calculations, United States needs to be there for Israel. It just needs to be there for Israel. It just doesn't make, in no calculation doesn't, every calculation would make it so that nothing else would make sense. And money speaks, commerce speaks. Like we keep looking at, I don't know, Thomas Massey and Nick Fuentes, but there are many more important people that we don't even hear in the media, like leaders of industry. Like what they say matters sometimes a lot more, and they're like, and we don't hear about them because they're too busy making important decisions to come on media, on Fox News or on YouTube and talk about these things. And there's just too much underlined. There's too much money and too much commerce and too much trade to sacrifice for the sake of a bunch of Jew haters that people are just not going to let that happen.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.